The regular meeting of the Aurora City Council for Monday, May 24th, 2021 is called to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Kaufman?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen?
Here.
Councilmember Berzins?
Here.
Councilmember Coombs?
Present.
Councilmember Gardner?
Here.
Councilmember Gruber?
Here.
Councilmember Hiltz? Councilmember Hiltz? Councilmember Johnston? Councilmember Lawson?
Here.
Councilmember Marcano?
Present.
Councilmember Murillo? Councilmember Murillo? Okay, there is a quorum. And Mayor, if we could do the announcements for the public call-in lines.
Please proceed.
Good evening. The City Council welcomes feedback from residents at council meetings on both matters appearing on the agenda and during public invited to be heard. For those watching on Channel 8, please call 855-695-3475, and when connected, press *3 to get in the queue to speak. Don't forget to press the star. You will hear a prompt confirming you are in line to speak to an operator and then be able to listen to the meeting until the operator comes online to take down your name, city, and the agenda item you want to speak on. Residents who would like to speak for public invited to be heard or on a specific agenda item and have not already been screened, please press *3 to sign up before the item is called by the clerk. And again, if you've already spoken to the operator, you do not need to press *3 again. Callers who do not sign up for public invited to be heard prior to it being called by the clerk may still press *3 and sign up to speak on non-agenda items at the end of the meeting. Depending on volume, it may take a few minutes for the operator to connect with you, so please be patient and stay on the line. As long as you heard the prompt after pressing *3 and can still hear the meeting in progress, you are in line to speak to an operator. Thank you.
Invocation, a moment of silence. I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for all those who have been lost to COVID-19 and for all those who are suffering from it. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor, can we have the Spanish interpreter do the call-in line announcement as well?
Please.
El Consejo Municipal de la Ciudad de Aurora le da la bienvenida a vecinos residentes en los dos temas que aparecen en la agenda durante la invitación a participar para que el público sea escuchado. Por favor, llame al número de teléfono 877-820-7831 con el código 254610 presionando gato. Y cuando esté conectado, presione, por favor, la oportunidad de hacer su comentario. La operadora tomará su nombre y el tema en la agenda del cual usted quiere hablar y le pondrá en espera. Las personas llamando necesitan anotarse o apartar su lugar para ser invitados a la audiencia o a tema en la agenda específica. Esto antes del inicio de sesión, llamando al funcionario encargado. Dependiendo del volumen de las personas, es que puede tomar un rato en conectarse con la operadora. Así que, por favor, sea paciente y permanezca en la línea. Gracias.
Executive session update. In executive session, we discussed personnel matters, property transaction, and had a litigation update. Approval of the minutes from March 19th, 2021. Motion.
Mayor.
Councilmember Marcano.
So moved.
Second.
It's moved by it's been moved by Councilmember Marcano, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen, to approve the minutes from March 22nd, 2021. Discussion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Gardner.
item 9B, support of military open enrollment resolution, has me voting yes, but I was a no vote on that.
Very well. Further discussion? Is there any objection to Councilmember Gardner's correction? Seeing now, the question before us is the adoption of the minutes from March 22nd, 2021. Would the clerk please call the roll?
I also want to, I didn't hear Councilmember Johnston or Councilmember Hilt say here, so I just want to clarify that because I see them.
Hiltz is here. Johnston is here.
Thank you. Okay, Mayor Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Present.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Hilt,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you. This is for the city clerk. I think that Councilmember Coombs said present as opposed to voting. I think on account of other people announcing themselves present. So I just want to make sure.
Was that
Sorry, yes, not present. I apologize.
Okay, I was going to have her correct that in minutes, but that's fine. Okay, so Katie, is that the record stands corrected then?
Yes.
Okay. Public invited to be heard. Non-agenda related issues.
We do not have anybody for public invited to be heard.
Adoption of the agenda, and understand that item number 12B will be moved to June 14th, and so will not be on this agenda.
Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem?
proclamation.
Oh, I'm sorry. There is a proclamation for mental health, and Councilmember Berzins, who has served on Aurora Mental Health for quite some time, will read the proclamation.
Thank you. Yes, since 2008, I've been on Aurora Mental Health. And this is Mental Health Awareness Month. So whereas mental health conditions are real and prevalent in our nation, and mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being. And whereas all Americans experience times of difficulty and stress in their lives, especially during this unprecedented time of pandemic that has impacted all of our lives with unique challenges. And whereas it is important to maintain mental health and to recognize the symptoms of mental illness and seek help when it's needed, and prevention is an effective way to reduce the burden of mental health conditions. And whereas every citizen and community can help end the silence and stigma surrounding mental health illness, and whereas with effective treatment, those individuals with mental health and other chronic health conditions can recover and lead full, productive lives. And whereas every business, school, government agency, healthcare provider, organization, and citizen share the burden of mental health problems and has a responsibility to promote mental awareness and support prevention efforts. And whereas Mental Health Awareness Month is an opportunity to increase public understanding of the importance of mental health and to promote the identification and treatment of mental illness. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Mike Kaufman, do hereby proclaim May 2021 as Mental Health Awareness Month in Aurora, Colorado. As the mayor, I call upon the communities of Aurora to increase awareness of mental health issues, steps our citizens can take to protect their mental health and well-being, and the need for appropriate and accessible mental health services. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the city of Aurora, Colorado to be affixed the 17th day of May, 2021. Mike Kaufman, Mayor, Aurora, Colorado. Thank you.
Motion for adoption of the agenda.
Mayor,
Councilmember McConnell.
so moved.
Second,
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
second.
It's been moved by Councilmember McConnell, second by Councilmember Coombs for the adoption of the agenda. Discussion.
Mayor,
Mayor Pro Tem.
did you mention removal of 12B? I can't remember.
No, I think we need to do that. And so is there any objection to the removal of item number 12B from the agenda? Seeing none, item number 12B will be removed from the agenda. Further discussion on the adoption of the agenda? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the agenda?
Mayor Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Consent calendar.
Mayor, I'm sorry, we need to approve 9A as well.
Oh, I'm sorry. Clerk, please read the title item number 9A.
Reconsideration of Resolution 2020-24 to suspend certain council rules.
Motion. Motion.
Mayor, move to approve both. Sorry.
Been moved by Councilmember Marcano, seconded by
Bergen.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen to approve item number 9A. Discussion.
Mayor Dave Gruber.
Councilmember Gruber.
I think we're getting close to the time to go back to normal meetings. I'd like, not tonight, but I'd like staff to bring us the plan as to what that would look like so that we can begin normal operations.
Yeah. Very well. Further discussion?
Mayor?
Councilmember Johnston.
I just want to make sure that staff, besides just saying what a plan would look like if we go back, to do research and recommendations if we should go back. As many people know, even if you're vaccinated, you can still carry it. And there are children who are under 12 who cannot get vaccinated. There's people on council, not just parents, but have family members and kids around them. So I just want also some research besides just this is what it looks like to go back, is giving that perspective too on safety issues and working with Tri-County Health.
Is there any objection to having staff come up with 3 different scenarios that would incorporate the public safety concerns of public health concerns of each scenario? Is there any objection? Seeing none, then that's the direction for staff.
Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, so I agree that I would like them to develop a plan for when we come back, but I also agree with Councilmember Johnston on what, making sure that we are keeping the population safe. And so I agree with both those points.
Further discussion.
Mayor, if I could add in, Jim Trombley, would like to also say that I think we would like to talk with council members to find out more about what we think in terms of returning in person and what that should look like. So with this subject broach, just count on some discussion, I think one-on-one with staff on that.
Very well. Further discussion on 9A? I see none. Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 9A?
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Member Hiltz,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
The motion passes for 9A.
Will the clerk please read the consent? Let me just say that the question before us is the adoption of the consent calendar items 10A through 10G. Motion.
Mayor,
Councilmember Gruber.
move to approve the consent items 10A through 10G with a waiver of reconsideration for item 10D as in Delta.
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
I'd like to pull off item 10D, please.
Okay.
Do we do a second first or no?
Well, I'm sorry, we didn't do a second. Councilmember Gruber moved the consent calendar with motion for reconsideration for item number 10D. Let me just get a second. Councilmember Coombs, can you second that, and then we'll go to your motion?
Yes, I second,
Okay.
and would like to pull off 10D.
Okay.
Mayor, this is Dave Gruber. If I modify my motion to eliminate 10D, that way we won't need a second vote.
Okay, very well.
To
Okay.
approve 10A through
Okay.
10C, 10E through 10G.
Okay. I think that's consistent with Councilmember Coombs' motion. A discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the consent calendar, items number 10A through 10C and 10E through 10G.
Mayor Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Very well. The time is now 6:47. The clerk has asked for 5 minutes to do the announcement for the caller line. So we will.
We can staff do 10D before the announcement if you would like.
Okay, very well. 10D.
Mayor, Dave Gruber.
Councilmember Gruber.
Move to approve 10D with a waiver of reconsideration.
It's been moved to approve 10D with a waiver of consideration by Councilmember Gruber, and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen. Discussion.
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
can we get a brief presentation from staff? I know we heard a long presentation about this last week, but I just want to make sure that members of the public are aware of our moving forward on this matter.
Staff presentation, please. Brief.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This is Division Chief Chris Jewell. I do have a short presentation, and if I can have the ability to share a screen, I will. Otherwise, I'll just move through some bullet points. So again, the RFP process that we, just a minute here, I think I've got. And there we go. So the RFP process resulted in 5 candidates for consideration for the body-worn camera. And we shortlisted that RFP process down to 2 after reviewing the RFPs. After that, we shortlisted from those 2 and did demos. We did a 30-day field trial and then requested BAFOs, best and final offers, from those 2 vendors. Included in that evaluation was police, also code and housing. IT was involved, the Citizens Police Advisory Team, the city audit was involved, and also the 17th and 18th district attorney offices were involved. All those folks that I listed are impacted by this, this decision. This offers a lot of enhancements over our current system. We're going to get a lot of increased functionality, mainly with regard to automation of a lot of things that are not currently automated by the current system that we have, which is at end of life and no longer supported by the vendor. Some of those things include automatic activation when lights or sirens are turned on a patrol car, the drawing of a sidearm. It has gunshot detection, GPS, just a lot of increased functionality compared to what we currently have. In addition, as we know, mounting options for our current system are problematic at best. The great thing about the new system we're moving to is a much more robust mounting system that should result in a lot better retention when officers are involved in any kind of physical altercation, running, physical activity, things like that. So, and really without regard to the kind of uniform the officer's wearing, because there's options for virtually everything. So moving on, it's also brings us up to S217 compliance plenty early. So everybody that's public facing on the agency will have this technology. And it also fulfills all the recommendations from city audit. And that includes audit trails, supervisory reviews, missing data, conflicting categorizations, and integrity of the original video. So all those things comply with city audit recommendations that our current system went through. I already touched on the hardware, the cameras. It comes with the cameras, mounts, the signal sidearm, vehicle triggers, docking station, for all the cameras. The great thing with the software is it's unlimited storage. Currently, we struggle with storage issues. This new contract will include unlimited storage, HD quality. It will interface with CAD and automatically categorize video. It allows for redaction assistance. So if there's a sensitive information in a school or something like that where we need to redact juvenile faces or medical issues, things like that, we can redact that information. Moving on for implementation, they're going to migrate all of our current video into the new system. I already talked about the CAD interface, and it comes with a 36-month warranty. Other features, we already talked about the sharing with the judicial districts. As the GPS supervisory review has a mute mode where our officers can mute the camera without turning it off, which is not a feature we currently enjoy. And another nice feature is going to be that all the hardware is going to be refreshed at 3 years. So everything gets replaced, from cameras to the signal sidearm, docking stations, everything gets replaced with brand new equipment, including new generations of the technology, if available.
Questions to staff? I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
This vendor also is really the only one that, as is out of the box, meets our requirements without extensive customization that other vendors are going to require. And I think, that just leads to current, potential issues. So it's nice that it's as is out of the box. And I just have one more slide if you'd like me to touch on pricing.
Please proceed.
Thank you, sir. The first year cost, this slide only reflects police departments. So you're going to see a slight discrepancy with our first year cost of $1,018,000 versus the $1,048,000 on the calendar. That's because of code. That additional $30,000 or so is the cost of code and housing being included in the contract. And then, so you can see just over $1 million for year one, offset by a grant to under $600,000, but a total cost over a 5-year contract of about $3.3 million payable over that 5 years. So with that, I will leave it to questions.
Questions of staff?
Mayor?
Councilmember Johnston.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. Have been very thorough, but just for the public, can we have the answer of having a waiver of reconsideration and the time sensitivity for this and why we're supporting that waiver?
Absolutely. So we are currently operating on a contract extension with VView, who's our current vendor, and that contract extension expires on July 31st. And if we have a waiver of reconsideration tonight, that gives us the really exact amount of time we need, that 7 to 9 weeks, to get this process shipped and implemented. So that's why that request was made.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Questions? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 10D. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Kaufman,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hilt,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Burzins,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
and Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
The motion passes for item 10D with the waiver reconsideration.
The time is now 6:55 p.m. We will recess until 7 p.m. so that another announcement can be given for the call-in line.
Residents who would like to speak on a resolution or ordinance tonight and have not already been screened, please press star 3 before the item is called by the clerk. For those watching on Channel 8, please call 855-695-3475 to be connected and then press star 3. Don't forget the star. Council has taken a short break to allow for any additional speakers to sign up. Again, please be patient and stay on the line until the operator is able to take down your information. As long as you have heard the prompt after pressing star 3 and can still hear either music hold or the meeting resuming, you are in line to speak to an operator. Thank you.
City Council is now called back into session. Will the clerk now please read the title of item number 11A?
11A is Resolution 2021-36, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, expressing the Aurora City Council support of the City of Aurora, Colorado, funding Archway Housing and Services, Inc. with Community Development Block Grant COVID-19 funding to provide counseling and meal activities for the year 2021.
Brief presentation by staff.
Yep. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Rodney Milton, Community Development Manager for Housing Community Services. This is a resolution along with 11B and 11C agreements that were executed as a part of our COVID-19 response for CDBG dollars for COVID response. Each one represents meal activities and capacity building for Archway.
Motion.
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
move to approve.
It's been moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by
Johnston.
Seconded by Councilmember Johnston to approve item number 11A. Discussion. Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 11A?
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 11B?
Item 11B is Resolution 2021-37, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, expressing the Aurora City Council support of the City of Aurora, Colorado, funding Seco Cares with Community Development Block Grant COVID-19 funding to provide meal activities for the year 2021.
Motion.
Mayor,
Councilmember Marcano.
move to approve 11B.
Been moved by Councilmember Marcano, seconded by
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Marcano, seconded by Councilmember Coombs to approve item number 11B. Would the staff please give a quick presentation?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Again, this is funding out of our COVID-19 CDBG Block Grant CV. This represents the $1.25 million that we received to carry out the 10 projects, carry out public service projects, and this represents another agreement with an agency for funding.
Discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 11B?
Councilmember Berzins,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Will the clerk now please read the title to item number 11C?
Item 11C is Resolution 2021-38, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, expressing the Aurora City Council support of the City of Aurora, Colorado, funding Rocky Mountain Welcome Center with Community Development Block Grant COVID-19 funding to provide meal activities for the year 2021.
Motion.
Mayor,
Councilmember Marcano.
move to approve 11C.
Moved by Councilmember Marcano, seconded by
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
second.
Moved by Councilmember Marcano, second by Councilmember Coombs to adopt item number 11C. Would the staff please give a brief presentation?
This represents another agreement as we've previously addressed.
Discussion? Seeing none, would clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 11C?
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Burzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Yes.
The motion passes for item 11C.
The public hearing for item number 12. Oh, I'm sorry. Another announcement for the call-in line. The time is now 7:05. We will stand at recess until 7:10 while the announcement can be given.
Thank you, Mayor. Residents who would like to speak on an ordinance and have not already been screened, please press *3 now and before the clerk calls the item. For those watching on Channel 8, again, the number to call in is 855-695-3475 to be connected, and then press *3. Don't forget the star. Council is taking a very short break to allow for any additional speakers to sign up. Again, stay on the line until the operator is able to take down your information. As long as you have heard the prompt after pressing *3 and can still hear music hold for the meeting beginning, you are in line to speak to an operator. Thank you.
Regular meeting for the Aurora City Council is now back in session. The public hearing with related ordinance. The public hearing is now open. Staff presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Is this for 12A?
Yes, Jeffrey.
Yes.
All right, very good. Thank you. Katie, if I may share my screen, I will open up my slideshow. Thank you. All right, very good. Just want to verify everyone can see the screen and you can hear me.
Yes, Jeffrey.
Great, thank you so much. Thanks everyone. Hello, Mayor and City Council members. Appreciate your time tonight. Looking forward to sharing some great updates that we've made to the proposed draft oil and gas manual. For the public, benefit of the public, my name is Jeffrey Moore. I'm the manager of the oil and gas division here in the city of Aurora. And our vision in the oil and gas division is that we steward access to the natural resources under our authority with integrity and respect for our citizens, our businesses, and the environment. I'm going to focus first with some updates that we've made. The last time that I was here was on study session on February 1st. And we've made quite a bit of changes since then. We've had quite a bit of public involvement as well. Since study session on February 1st, we had 2 town halls on May 5th and 6th. I had a presentation to the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Oil and Gas Advisory Committee. Both of those were open to the public as well. We responded to many comments from public and industry. Some of those were repeats of previous comments, about 60%. We had notified all of the commenters that our replies to their comments had been posted on our webpage, as well as the updated version of the oil and gas manual, which is in your packets tonight. We also renoticed this meeting with the Aurora Sentinel, and of course we made many changes based on feedback from council members in study session and since, and from the public and industry. There's a couple of things I'd like to go over first before we talk about the specifics changes that we've made. The first is COGCC rules. As you're all aware, the COGCC is the state agency that has oversight over oil and gas at the state level, and they have a very robust set of rules. They just had a new rulemaking last year, and new rules went into effect in January. There was an article in the Denver Post yesterday, and a quote said, Colorado, a major oil and gas producer, has what is considered the country's strongest setback rule. A well site must be at least 2,000 feet back from homes and schools. So I just want to make sure you have the perspective that as a state, we are really at the forefront in the United States on oil and gas regulations and rules and regulations that apply to operators of oil and gas wells and operations. So I'm excited about that. That's a great starting place. On top of that, each rule and regulation that we are looking at in the oil and gas manual is, of course, in addition to and more stringent than the state rules and regulations. The second thing is just a reminder of the state statutes of where we get our authority to even craft these rules to begin with, and that's in Colorado Revised Statutes in section 29-20-104, where it discusses the powers of local governments. In the section related to oil and gas, it says specifically that regulating the surface impacts of oil and gas operations in a reasonable manner. That is the authority that we have. Reasonable there could be challenged and has been challenged by jurisdictions in the past. Most of those that have challenged that by attempting to ban oil and gas activities or ban certain things like hydraulic fracturing have been struck down by the Colorado Supreme Court. So we do not have unlimited authority to craft rules and regulations, but we do have limited authority, and we want to make the most and best use of that authority that we have. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is our current situation and show a couple of maps for what oil and gas looks like here in Aurora. The first map on the screen here is a map of the oil and gas producing area. It's primarily, or it's exclusively in Ward 2. On the screen in yellow is city, inside the city limits. And then the red and dark red polygons that you see on the screen, those are the current oil and gas or proposed oil and gas locations as they may occur in the operator agreements that we have with certain entities. What you might see when you look at this is you might see, well, there's a lot of space in between these locations and what's the future going to look like? Is there room for a lot more wells, a few more wells? What does this look like? The next map that I want to show incorporates what's called the DSU, or the Drilling and Spacing Unit at the state level. So now the map on the screen includes the, in blue, the Drilling and Spacing Unit polygons. In Aurora, these are primarily 2 square miles east and west, so they look like rectangles on the screen. What I've done is I've pulled up the drilling and spacing units that are associated with each of the well sites that are in our operator agreements. When an operator wants to drill a well, especially a horizontal well, they have to apply for this DSU at the COGCC and have it approved. And so once it's approved, that gives the operator the exclusive rights to access the minerals in that formation in that particular DSU. So for all of those areas that are shown in blue on the screen, those are essentially the only wells or well sites that are ever going to be in those drilling and spacing units, with the exception that potentially in the future another formation could come into play, but I don't think that's likely at this point. The final thing that I want to show, the final map, incorporates one more piece of information, and yes, I tried to use as bright of colors as I could on this map. And in red, this shows the red circles. It shows the 2,000-foot setback that I mentioned earlier at the COGCC state level. So those are around existing residences and any future oil and gas activities which are outside of our operator agreements would have to also be outside of those polygons. So what that leaves is the area shown in yellow on this map. It's about 5,000 acres total, which is about 4% of the 109,000 acres that represents the city of Aurora. So these rules and regulations that we're talking about tonight are going to apply to these areas and any future areas that may be annexed into the city. All right, with that, I'd like to do what I did last time at study session and go through the changes that we have made since study session, since February 1st. We'll do that by topic, and I probably will pause at the end of each topic and ask for any questions. I feel like that worked well last time that we did this. All right, our first topic is public communication. The first item here is that we added tenants to our list of notified residents at all stages of notification for the city and operators. Previously, we just notified surface owners, but we recognize that there are many cases where the surface owner is not the tenant. And so we've added that in, that tenants also must be notified. We have some specifics around that to delineate who is a tenant, how the operators can define the tenants, and the proper notification procedures for those. Next is requiring posting of street addresses on well pad signage. That would be the sign that's located out at the actual well site and within the applications. Now, there is a process that's required for this sometimes to get a street address, but once that address has been assigned, we want to start using that so that it makes it a better way to communicate with the public. Most members of the public aren't familiar with township range and section or latitude, longitude. So this is a great way to make sure that everyone is thinking about the right place and has that in mind if they provide comments on applications or if they notice something, an issue in the field that they'd like to report. We've added some new definitions, including things like neighborhood meeting, notified residents, variance request, responsible official. We've added a protocol for response to complaints received. We've also added a requirement that neighborhood meetings should allow virtual attendance during the meeting, or the operator should host a separate virtual meeting in addition to the in-person neighborhood meeting. And then finally, any written comments, public comments that are submitted as a result of that neighborhood meeting should be submitted within 30 days after the neighborhood meeting so that operators have an opportunity to respond to those, and all those comments would be included in the review of the permit application. That is the last thing here for public communication. So Mayor, if it's okay with you, I will open it up for any questions.
Please proceed. Questions? Questions? No. I'm sorry.
Jeffrey, so you're still doing your presentation, correct?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm good. I blanked out for a second, so.
That's okay. No, I've got about 8 more slides. I just wanted to pause here rather than going through the whole thing. I'm happy to go through the whole thing if that's your preference. I just thought maybe if I pause after each one, give a chance for any questions on this topic and we could address it that way.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I have a question.
Great.
Councilmember Moses.
Thank you. When there is an amendment, does the public have to be notified? Is there another stakeholder outreach requirement for an amendment?
An amendment to an approved permit?
Yeah.
So the amendment to a permit would go through the variance request process. So if there's any desire to change what's been approved, it would have to be submitted as a variance request. There is some public involvement in the variance request. The neighborhood meeting for the variance request is not required, but it can be required by the oil and gas manager. It can also be required by a directly impacted surface owner. So someone who's impacted directly by an oil and gas location, they could request a neighborhood meeting as part of the variance request process.
And who does that variance request? Is it staff only, or council members can request it, and then, or how does that work?
The operator would apply to the oil and gas division. There are specific criteria listed in the oil and gas manual that would be used to judge the merits of the variance request. It would be approved or denied administratively, and then there are options for appealing that decision either way. And of course, council always has the opportunity to call up any administrative decision within the city.
Okay, so there is a process in here. Okay.
Yes, there is.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, next topic is permitting, and specifically on the financial assurance. So we added in some provisions here that the operator shall demonstrate its financial capability to comply with our regulations by submitting 3 or 4 things. First is a current balance sheet. Second is a signed statement of cash flow and net worth, demonstrating the ability to comply with our regulations, including the ability to fund the permitting, the operations, and the surface reclamation. Third is a list of all bonding provided to the COGCC, which applies to the application. And then, as sort of a catch-all, any other reasonable and relevant financial documentation requested by the city. When an operator submits a permit application, what I want to see is that they have a plan in place to fund the various stages of operation. I want to see what bonding is required at the COGCC, especially for plugging and end of life. And then finally, I want to see if really just what's the status of the operator. Is this a company that's financially solvent, or are they having problems? You know, what's their overall financial picture look like? I would also add to this is that in addition to the rulemaking last year at COGCC, they are currently undergoing a new rulemaking process specifically on this topic on financial assurance. The city is participating in that process. And so that's ongoing, and there will be new rules will be coming out probably this fall at the state level. Once we see what the COGCC has in mind and what they're going to do, what changes they may make, we will review this ourselves to see if there's additional information that needs to be, or additional regulations that need to be included. As I've discussed before, we do have to be careful the way we phrase our bonding or the requirements around our bonding. There are certain parts of operations, specifically the downhole or down the wellbore operations like drilling and completions and plugging, that local jurisdictions do not have any authority over. And city attorneys have advised that we need to be careful not to try to assume authority over that area that we don't have authority in. We want to leave that for the state rules. And that is all for this topic. So I will open for questions.
Mayor.
Protem, please proceed. Mayor Protem.
Yes, thank you, Jeffrey. So on these new requirements on all the, the statement of cash flow, the balance sheet and all that, is that something that other jurisdictions are doing, or did we come up with this on our own?
No, this is something other jurisdictions are doing. We also have clear authority under the Colorado Revised Statutes that financial assurance is a topic that we can ask questions about and get information about from the operators.
Further questions? Seeing none, Jeffrey, please proceed with the presentation.
Thank you. The next issue on permitting is extensions. Previously, our permits did not have an expiration date, but COGCC state permits do have an expiration date of 3 years. And so we've added language to the document to say that if construction has not begun within 3 years, the operator may request a 1-year extension, and they can do that twice. So they can request up to 2 years, but it has to be 1 year at a time. We have some specific criteria that must be submitted and reviewed in order for that extension to be approved. And those 3 things are: first, that no additional adverse impacts to health or environment would occur. The second is that the surface use conditions and surrounding land uses have not changed to such a degree that if that permit were being considered as a new permit, it would not be able to be approved at that point. And then finally, we'd ask the operator to submit updated financial information, bonding information, and insurance, just to make sure that if any of that has changed in the 3 years since the original permit was issued, that we are aware of that and can review that also. Any other extensions beyond this would have to go to City Council for a public hearing, and then would be based on these same criteria. And then any extension has to have the consent of the surface owner. With the new COGCC rules and regulations, the local jurisdictions typically now go first in their permitting process. So we go first, and then the operator finishes up the process at COGCC to get their state permit. If we don't have an ability to extend, there's certainly the possibility that we can make an approval, and then they go to the state level after some delay. They go to the state level and get a permit there, and by that time, our permit is expired. So we're trying to avoid that particular situation. Give the operators an opportunity to have an extensions, but there are criteria associated with that. Questions?
Any questions? No, seeing none, please proceed.
The next topic is air quality. We are requiring a new speciated, and I'll define that in a minute, speciated baseline air quality sample. And we have a number of items that have to be sampled there. Again, this is very standard. In fact, our operator Crestone is already sampling for most, Crestone Peak Resources, I should say, is already sampling for most of these things currently, even though they're not required to by the operator agreement. In chemistry, a species is a different arrangement of atoms or elements. So for example, in hydrocarbons, they're all made of carbon and hydrogen, but you have things like methane. Methane's different from butane. Butane's different from propane, and so forth and so on. They have different numbers of carbon and hydrogen atoms that represent the molecule. And so when you just take a total hydrocarbon sample, that tells you one thing, but taking a speciated sample tells you something else. Different types of emissions in the air can tell you different things about where the source of the emissions are from, whether it's from oil and gas production, whether it's from vehicle exhaust, and other sources as well. So there's some key things that we're looking for here: particulate matter at a 2.5 and 10 level. These are things that are very standard across the U.S. now, looking at just overall big picture health effects of air quality. Sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, carbon dioxide, the hydrocarbons that I mentioned earlier, VOCs, which are, again, longer chain hydrocarbons, which all include benzene, toluene, ethylbenzene, and xylene. So that's all required as a baseline sample. Once we have that, then the operators continue with their production phase. They take a routine sample. If elevated hydrocarbons are indicated, they then have to take a subsequent speciated sample during the production phase so they can compare those two things together. Our continuous air monitoring is narrow defined as data points obtained at least once per minute. Again, our primary operator, Crestone Peak Resources, is already doing this, already has equipment that can do this. We have a pre-construction baseline that we've also applied to central gathering facilities and compressor stations. And then I already mentioned about the speciated hydrocarbon sample during production phase. Questions on air quality?
Questions of staff? Seeing none, please proceed.
All right, next topic is surface quality. The first thing here is that unused equipment from oil and gas locations must be removed within 30 days. We had that previously. We are allowing longer storage times in certain cases if the surface owner agrees and if it's also within other city code. We still don't allow permanent storage of temporary or unused equipment. We don't want the oil and gas locations to become storage areas. We've added some more restrictive requirements for notification of spills and fires and explosions. Specifically, we say any spill of 1 gallon or more that leaves the oil and gas location, or any spill within the oil and gas location of 1 barrel or more, shall be reported to the city within 6 hours. And again, that 6 hours is a change from the earlier 24 hours, and this is in line with COGCC rules and regulations also. We require the operator, not the surface owner, to maintain the disturbed area during pipeline construction. We allow diagonal installation of pipelines, and that's would be like diagonal on a map, so southwest to northeast or southeast to northwest. So in other words, not following east-west or northwest section lines or quarter section lines. But we do require the surface owner or the developer to agree with that request by the operator. And then finally, we require mapping of wetlands and critical infrastructure on all of our applications. Questions?
Questions of staff? Seeing none, please proceed.
All right, so now this is a group of some just other changes that didn't fit into any other section yet. Variance request. So as I mentioned earlier, if an operator wants to make a change to their location, and this is any change, we don't define minor or major. We say if they want to make any change to their location, they must submit a variance request. And there are specific criteria that we will judge those requests by. One of those criteria states this, which again is a copy of COGCC language. It says the granting of a variance will result in no net adverse impact to public health, safety, welfare, the environment, of wildlife resources. I also mentioned earlier the neighborhood meeting as part of the VR process may be required by the oil and gas manager, or can be requested by a directly impacted surface owner. We've added some new terms. I mentioned before during study session that pipeline authority specifically is very complex in the United States. There's federal authority, there's state authority, there's local authority. And we had to remove some of the pipeline regulations from the oil and gas manual because when they were in agreements, like the operator agreements, they were fine. But once we moved them to a regulatory structure, we realized that they were in conflict with other jurisdictions' regulations. So we had to remove some of those. In addition to that, we've added some new terms. One is an off-location produced water flow line. One is a crude oil transfer line. And this just helps to better define the types of pipelines that we have in Aurora. This goes to COGCC rules. They have the crude oil transfer line, but not the other one. And so we needed something that would best define what we have without having a conflict with COGCC or with PUC. We've added some definition to describe the scope and purpose of our inspections, some new training requirements in conjunction with emergency services. There are specific points in time that training is required before drilling, before production, and then annually after that. And then we added our inspection fees. Questions?
Questions of staff?
I have one on the variance.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Oh, thank you. On the variance request, so it says now not just a minor change, but any change. So tell me again, if there's a variance, how would that get approved?
So if there's a request for a variance, again, when we say minor, how do you define minor? Minor is qualitative, not quantitative. So, we've had operators in the past that requested things that we didn't feel were minor. And so we had to have some discussion and move them to a particular direction, for that. So we took out the word minor and just said that any change that's different from our regulation, any request to do something that's different from what the regulation says, has to go through the variance request process. Again, that's very well defined in the oil and gas manual. There are specific criteria. I believe it's 8 criteria that will be employed to gauge the validity of that request. If it's denied, the follow-up option to that is the operator can then submit a reapplication. So they have an approved permit. If their variance request was denied, then they could go back through the variance or through the application process, taking what they originally submitted and updating it to include that well or that change. For example, adding a well or multiple wells to a location, I would consider that a major request. So I would not consider that something that would be approved under a variance. it would have to be, that would have to go back through a full review process if an operator wanted to make that level of change.
So if they had already been approved on their wells, and let's just say, I don't know, technology changes and there's a better way to get a pipeline in a shorter distance, or that would be still a major variance, right? I don't even know. I'm just thinking if there was something that it's still all within our code, but there is a minor change for some location, they still would have to go through the whole process?
I think one of the things we would definitely consider is this line here on the second bullet that's on the screen. The granting of a variance will result in no net adverse impact to public health, safety, welfare, the environment, or wildlife resources. So if, for example, a technology has changed and they want to make a change, which could be changing out a piece of equipment. For example, maybe they want to change out a diesel engine with an electric engine on site for various purposes. That would be a major piece of equipment. However, it would be definitely to the advantage of the public and the environment to make that change. So
right, but then you would still make them, but you would make them then go through the whole, I mean, that would be a really good thing. Would it not just be like, oh, good, check off and they're good to go?
That's what I'm saying, yes. We would definitely consider the impact to the environment. That's one of the criteria under the variance request. So if there's a positive impact to the environment, that's something we're definitely going to look at very seriously and strongly consider as we would look at approving the variance request.
Okay.
If there's going to be a positive impact.
Further questions on this section?
Mayor Berzins.
Councilmember Berzins.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I must be thick here. I was talking about future amendments to the UDO language itself. Is that what you answered as far as the variance? Or
no, I don't think so.
So what is the process on that?
Great, thank you for the question. I understand that now. You're asking if you want to make changes to the oil and gas regulations, what does that look like in the future?
Yes. What? Absolutely. No, and I'm not talking about the applications. It's the amendment process in the future.
I understand now. I apologize for missing that earlier.
I didn't make myself clear either, so don't worry.
Okay. The process is delineated in the oil and gas manual. The staff would consider any changes that need to be made. It first goes to the Oil and Gas Advisory Committee for review and report, and then it must come to City Council through the study session process and through a council meeting and public hearing. This is all an ordinance. Every part of the oil and gas manual will be a chapter 135 of the city code. So it is an ordinance, and future changes will have to be made by ordinance as well through City Council.
Okay, and one more question. You know, things change. The longer you're here, things change. When people get tired of buying oil and gas from Russia, and we decide we need more oil and gas, and the GCC changes, then we go back and change our rules according to the new commission, right? Our old oil and gas manual won't work when there's a new commission making new rules. So we just have to keep up with that.
You mean the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, or you mean a different?
No, I mean that when they change the rules again. I mean, everything evolves, you know.
Yes, correct. So we are always looking at COGCC rules and other state agency rules to see how we might need to update our rules and regulations. That will be an ongoing process. So I expect that we'll likely be making changes, potentially on an annual basis moving forward. There'll be things that we research and discover that we want to make changes in the future. There'll be new ways to coordinate with state agencies in the future as well. And so we'll make sure that we are revised to that. In terms of, if the commission makes a new rule, again, we have to look at it. So let's say, just as an example, COGCC has a setback of 2,000 feet currently. So let's just say that, for example, we're not proposing this, but we were to propose a setback of 2,100 feet. Well, then we have to understand which direction is COGCC going. If they're making it less restrictive in the future for some reason, if they go back down to 1,000 feet, we would keep the higher restriction. And if they do back down, then we can consider on something that we don't currently have, we could consider adding that in the future. If they become more restrictive, then our regulation is no longer applicable because the operator must follow the most restrictive of the regulations.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? If seeing none, please proceed with the presentation.
Thank you. I've just got 2 more slides here, and these are all fairly minor things on the legal side that mostly were suggested by city attorneys. One is just operator must ensure compliance by their contractors and subcontractors. If there is an application for a well site or a well, and that application or that well site is undergoing an enforcement action by another agency, and I would define that as the operator has received a notice of violation and has not resolved that yet, then we would not issue any permit or variance request until that process is resolved with the other agency. Operators also already had to get a business license, but we clarified that in the oil and gas manual. We added some standard language for notifications and publication, some clarification on lands that had wells already on them that were annexed into the city. And we've had this situation happen already from lands we annexed from Arapahoe County. And we've said that the wells, as long as they're properly permitted by the other jurisdiction, they can continue operations until such time as they have a renewal, which again has happened. And in one case, a stormwater permit was expiring. And so we've asked the operator to then submit that to us so that we can review it under our rules and regulations and our process. We would again make some adjustments, or if there are things that have already been built in the field, we would have to go point forward with the rules and regulations in that case. And then the second slide is allowing assignment of permits. So we do cover assignment of permits in the oil and gas manual. We have some requirements here. Basically, they're very similar to what was the original operator would have to show evidence of. Financial and operational capability to comply, adequate insurance, and then if, let's say, operator A is wanting to sell or assign some wells to operator B, then we do want operator B to do an evaluation of the field with our rules and regulations and in partnership with us, so they can identify any areas of noncompliance. This protects operator B from getting into a situation where they purchase wells and find that they're in noncompliance, that they didn't know it. That makes sure they're protected, and then also gives us a time frame and a plan to show, when and how that operator B is going to bring all those facilities back into a situation of compliance. And then we did have, in an earlier draft at study session, we had allowed for immediate notification of inspections. Based on city attorney's review of that in Colorado case law, there is a precedent that some notification more than immediate is required. So we typically will allow 24 hours notification for inspections of well sites. But if there's an emergency or a complaint, it might be less than that. So it might be a situation where we would, if we had a complaint, we would call the operator and say, hey, we've had a complaint, we'd like to meet you at the location as soon as possible to evaluate that complaint and understand the merits of it. And that is all for legal. Questions?
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for the presentation. Clerk Rodriguez, do we have residents to testify?
We do have 6 residents in the queue, so I can put Roger on the line to have them speak. Roger, you're unmuted and ready to go. Okay, it looks like we're having some troubles getting Roger on. If you would like to go to the council members, then I'll try to fix this issue for him.
Further discussion by council members?
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Thank you. While we're waiting, I did have a question for Jeffrey.
Please.
Thank you. And that's when you and I met, Jeffrey, we discussed one of my constituents' concerns around notifications for future tenants or homeowners for homes that may be within, noticeable distance of an oil and gas well. And you said that you were going to, take a look and see how we could ensure that we can get those notifications kind of included as, I guess, part of the sale packet or something like that. Did you make any progress on that, or is that something you're still looking into?
We've made some progress there. Part of that will be the responsibility of the city. I feel like that's something that we would do as an oil and gas division. Some of those notifications, certainly there are certain parts that are required by the operator, but we are developing materials, educational materials that we would like to send out ourselves to citizens, just for the simple fact that they'll be consistent. They'll address the questions from our perspective that we feel like are most important. It will provide that information on contact, especially for the city. If an operator sends out something, they might provide contact information for themselves, which is fine, but that may or may not be the best contact for filing of complaints or other things like that. So we would primarily expect to be involved in that type of communication to the public.
All right, good, thank you.
Further questions? Clerk Rodriguez, how are we doing?
You got Roger back on the line and he's ready to go.
Very well, please proceed.
Sorry about that. The system froze up. First up is Pat. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead. Pat Dunn, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. A great big thank you to Mr. Moore and council members for strengthening our financial assurance. Sure to appreciate it. I got a quick question for Mr. Moore. My question is about using closed loop systems. On page 50 of the proposed oil and gas manual, it does list closed loop systems, but on page 103, under odor prevention, language about using closed loop was excluded. It's right on the top of page 103. Closed loop systems have been accepted as best management practice for years, so it's confusing. I'm wondering, Mr. Moore, why was mention of closed loop excluded on page 103? Would appreciate your explanation very, very much, and I do thank you very much for your time.
Go ahead, Mr. Moore. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go through all the callers and then I'll defer to Mr. Moore.
Great.
All right. Next is Brad Pierce. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for the opportunity for me to provide comments. I'm Brad Pierce. I'm chair of the Oil and Gas Advisory Committee, and I'd like to provide our comments on the oil and gas manual. Our committee members reviewed the manual during the public comment period, and we all sent our comments and our questions to one of our committee members, who then kind of compiled all of our comments, submitted them to Mr. Moore. And then at our July 15th and August 19th, 2020 virtual committee meetings, Mr. Moore responded to our comments. We also want to acknowledge and appreciate the hundreds and hundreds of hours of time city staff devoted to review not only our comments made by our committee, but also comments made by the public and different organizations. We are supportive of the regulations described in the manuals, but we have one specific comment we would like to make on the City Council call-up provisions. if y'all recall, back when the operator agreements were approved, the locations described in the agreements were also approved. So that provided certainty for both the city and the operator for the locations described in the operator agreement. Now, we believe that the call-up provisions in the oil and gas manual are a shift in policy, because to add provisions that the city council can call up these decisions puts the operators who are planned on drilling the locations in an awkward position. In other words, the locations the operator agreements were approved, not subject to call up. The locations approved according to the manual are subject to call up, and we believe that's a shift in policy. So thank you again for the opportunity to comment, and I'd take any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you. Next is Sonia Skrema. I apologize if that's mispronounced. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. The most current revisions of the ordinances are improved, notably the baseline measurement of speciated hydrocarbons that are of most concern to air quality and health. But there's no process that would require immediate notification to the city of toxic emissions that exceed permit limits when they do occur, nor a requirement of speciated assessment in those instances, nor a written plan outlining how such toxic emissions will be avoided in the future, excessive toxic emissions. Recent public comments by the oil and gas director claim Aurora cannot refer to and specifically require upholding of state, EPA, or other regulations, nor report such violations to relevant agencies, and all such references have been removed. In contrast, Boulder's ordinances consistently refer to these. For example, regarding toxic air emissions, they require compliance with the current and most protective air quality regulations and health-based standards of EPA, CDPHE, COGCC, Centers for Disease Control, or other relevant authorities. Strong enforcement of ordinances is critical for an industry with a long record of skirting regulations. Aurora asserts daily fines of around $2,500 for violations, specifically excludes any possible jail time, but doesn't describe any other mechanisms for enforcement. Boulder, in contrast, has a lengthy section regarding enforcement, much more likely to get full compliance, including written orders suspending permit approval until the violation has been remedied if the operator hasn't made the remedy in response to a written request, including also noting that any and all enforcement measures can be used as provided under law, and that false, omitted, or altered entries may be reported to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. Additionally, if violations of COGCC regs are noted, the COGCC can be notified in writing, and if the COGCC fails to bring suit, it can be referred for injunctive relief. Boulder also has much more extensive requirements for emergency management, which better protect public health and safety. It also wisely requires independent consultants to prepare assessments to be used for permitting on many issues, most importantly regarding toxic air emissions and estimations of impacts to air quality over the life of operations. Without such information, the permitting process is not appropriately informed on the critical issue of the impact of the operations to public health and safety.
Your 3 minutes are up. Next is Edith Henke. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I am Edith Henke, and I reside in Aurora. I am calling in support of 12A and encourage you to vote in favor of this important ordinance pertaining to oil and gas development near my home. In Northeast Aurora, developers were allowed by the city to build homes, even though the city knew that this area was zoned as drilling for oil. The city never should have allowed homes to be built in this area, knowing full well that fracking would occur in the future. Now, homeowners' health and safety in this area is under attack. As a resident who lives near oil and gas development, I am concerned about noise mitigation. That is just one thing. There is also air quality and clean water. There is a well just blocks from my home. I have endured many sleepless nights from the constant hum. It sounds like a lawnmower running all night long. I have tinnitus, and whenever I do not sleep well, the noise in my ears is even louder the next day to where I am unable to concentrate. I hope that the city will make sure that the operator will be receptive to any complaints from the citizens who live nearby, and that the operator will agree to use methods to reduce the noise. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Randy Webb. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
This is Randy Webb. I live in Ward 4 of Aurora. I'm sorry. So I just wanted to say thank you to the council and the Oil and Gas Division Manager, Jeffrey Moore, for the protective edits in this draft. However, I still have several concerns that I hope will be addressed in future updates. For example, the bottom of page 125, section 22, which is continued on page 126 as number 2, notice to purchasers. Since the 2019 Senate Bill 181 allows cities to make rules that are more protective of the public than state rules, I feel that in Aurora, we should promote ethical notification to purchasers of something possibly dangerous, such as an oil well, on, under, or near their property, and that notice should be given forever. Therefore, I'd like to see deleted paragraphs similar to the following on that same page that reads, this requirement to provide notice to prospective purchasers and record such notice shall only apply to the transaction between the developer or builder and the initial purchaser, and does not apply upon any subsequent sale of the property. So, in my opinion, in essence, it notifies realtors that they are not to mention the existence of gas or oil development that happened on or under or near the property they are assisting in the sale or purchase of. Another and last example is on printed page 43, setbacks, that reads, D, operators shall cite the oil and gas location a minimum of 350 feet from all domestic water wells. To me, this seems an unsafe and unreasonably small distance. Finally, I want to voice my support for several speakers, and especially Sonia Scatchis-Grima, who represents What the Frack Arapaho. A special thanks to Council Members Juan Marcano of Ward 4 and Nicole Johnston, Ward 2, for all your work on this issue, and the Oil and Gas Division Manager and staff too. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Lynn Granger. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Kaufman and council members. My name is Lynn Granger, and I'm the Executive Director of API Colorado. API Colorado is a division of the American Petroleum Institute, which represents all facets of the natural gas and oil industry. API Colorado is also committed to ensuring a strong, viable industry capable of meeting the energy needs of the state in a safe and environmentally responsible manner. I would like to start by thanking the council members for their time and allowing me the opportunity to speak this evening. Tonight, I come before you to voice concerns regarding the latest draft of your oil and gas regulations. I would like to begin by stating that we appreciate the city's desire to update its regulations to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of your constituents. We would also like to commend your staff for their outreach and hard work on this draft and appreciate the changes made and concerns addressed so far in the process. Nevertheless, we do have some significant outstanding issues. As we have noted in our written comments, we believe this proposal contains some provisions that are contrary to both the intent and language of SB 19-181. While we agree that under Colorado law, local governments now have more authority to regulate certain potential impacts from oil and gas development, we believe it is quite clear that the proposed regulations must be either necessary or reasonable in nature. First, the city is requesting highly sensitive business confidential information to be submitted with a request for a pre-application meeting. It's unclear what purpose this serves, and the city needs to provide assurances that the information will be treated as business confidential and not disclosed to third parties or under the state's open records law. We would note that not only is this condition specific to oil and gas permit applications, but also bears no relevancy on an applicant's ability to comply with the proposed rules. Next, while we appreciate your work in narrowing the scope of the proposed pipeline inspection regulations, it is unclear whether the newly defined crude oil transfer line is a significant regulatory gap which the city has determined needs to be filled. Such systems, to the extent they even exist at a particular well site, are not commonly regulated at the local level in other states. We have a host of additional concerns, some of which we laid out in our written comments. These include, among others, the proposal's inclusion of continuous air monitoring being measured in minutes, the section which encompasses pending enforcement action, and the standards for granting variances. We appreciate the opportunity to comment before the council and would encourage this council to continue good faith discussions in an effort to resolve outstanding differences prior to adopting this new regulatory framework. Thank you so much for your time.
That concludes the comments signed up for 11A, or 12A, excuse me.
You're muted, Mayor.
Jeffrey, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you. I'll be happy to. I'll do this in order of the call-ins. First, the question from Pat Dunn on the closed loop system on page 103. So there are two primary sections within this document, and sometimes it's not clear that there are two sections. The first group of sections relate to wells and well locations. The second is related to pipelines. So on page 103, that's in the pipeline section. We removed that requirement for the closed loop system because it doesn't relate to pipeline installation or operations. That is something that's exclusive to the drilling of wells and completion of wells. So it makes sense in the well section. It is still there, as you mentioned, but we did take it out of page 103 because it doesn't apply to pipeline operators. From Mr. Pierce on the question on the call-up. So a couple of comments here. The first is that just a note, a reminder that any well that was approved as part of an operator agreement will remain under the operator agreement, under the terms of the operator agreements. These rules and regulations do not apply to those wells and locations. The concern that was expressed was that City Council could call up a decision, administrative decision by the Oil and Gas Commission or a decision by the Planning and Zoning Commission. That's the process that we put together now for operators to go through. So they first come and submit the first part of the application. It goes to Planning and Zoning for review and approval of the location itself. Then the operator submits the remainder of their permit materials, and it ends in an administrative decision by the Oil and Gas Division. As both of those decisions, as with any other decision in the city, can always be called up by City Council. The specific concern about the call-up, my perspective is that in order for an operator to get an operator agreement in the first place, that required a public hearing and multiple visits to City Council and a public process to City Council in order for the operator agreements that we have now to be approved. In the current process, the operator first goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then there's administrative decision. So yes, Council can call up any decision that's made administratively in the city, but in this case, I don't feel like that's particularly onerous for the operator because they don't have to go to City Council to get an operator agreement to begin with. Several issues here that were addressed by Sonia Skakic-Screema. The first on the immediate notice to the city of air quality issues. That is something that we are working on in terms of the city itself. The Oil and Gas Division is looking at a network, installing a network of air quality monitors around the city. We prepared a budget for that, and we're working through that process. That'll be coming to City Council later this year for consideration. That's something that we're doing as a city, not something that we're having the operators do. In terms of immediate notification, that is a good perspective, and I feel like that at this point we do get notification from the operators when there is an incident. But I think that the rules and regulations we have in place are appropriate for us at this time. In terms of referring to other agencies, so first of all, we do state in the manual, in the very first section, that we expect operators to comply with all other rules and regulations, but we don't have any enforcement over state rules or state regulations. So we can't we can't put in an enforcement provision into our rules and regulations at the local level that would have any kind of penalty or influence if the operator doesn't follow the state rules and regulations. That's not our authority. In addition to that, we are limited as a local jurisdiction. We're limited by state statute and the amount of fines that we can deploy, and that limit is $2,650 per day. We do have a provision that states that every day of an incident is a separate violation, but that is a limit, and that's limited by state government. We don't have the ability to go over that. You mentioned that there was Boulder as an example. I would say that Boulder is a city and a county, and they have different governing structures. They have different levels of fines, I believe, that they can deploy potentially as a county, and that looks very different than what we have the ability to do here in the city. And then finally, on the independent assessments, and this would be on the risk side, my perspective has been that the production here in Aurora, almost all the wells are producing from the same formation, which is the Niobrara. Their operations and their drilling are very, very similar. I believe the risks are very well known and understood well to well, and that a professional risk assessment is not something that's necessary at this point because everything is very similar from well to well. The question on from Edith Henke on reverse setbacks. That is something that we are looking at as a future consideration. Reverse setbacks would not apply to oil and gas operators. So a primary setback is like what COGCC has currently, which says if a residence or a school is already built and in place, then new oil and gas has to be 2,000 feet away from that. A reverse setback would be the opposite. It would say that if the oil and gas facility is already in place, how far do you have to be away from that existing oil and gas facility to put a future residence or school? We do not have any reverse setbacks here in Aurora at this point. Some local jurisdictions do. We are reviewing those jurisdictions, what others have, and we will be coming to City Council later this year with some suggestions to consider in that regard. On the noise complaint or the issue of noise, if you do have an issue with noise, I encourage you to file a complaint. You may email me or go to our website. We would love to hear about that. We would be happy to review that and take a look at the situation with you to understand what you're experiencing. We do have noise requirements, including C-scale noise, which is a lower frequency noise in the oil and gas manual. The comments from Randy Webb on page 126 on notifications. This is a provision that was in the UDO and we're leaving it in the UDO. It's a notification provision. It simply says that if a developer of a residential parcel, if they're developing a residence that is within the state setback, which is 2,000 feet, that they're required to notify the first purchaser of that property about that setback. The suggestion from Randy Webb was that we make that in perpetuity, so that notification applies to all future purchasers of the property, not just the first purchaser. We are looking into that. Again, I believe this is most suited for county regulations. I don't know that the city has any ability to require a developer who sells a property to become a residence or they build a residence and sell it to a homeowner. 10, 20, 50 years down the road, that developer could be out of business. They could be, moved to a different state, all kinds of things. And so I don't know that we as a city have the ability to require that. I think that has to be something that's done at the county level. I'm told that there are other provisions around the Superfund site that do require notifications of perpetuity. So I think it can be done. We're looking into that. But again, this is not something that would affect oil and gas operators. It would be something that would be applied to developers of residential properties. On the page 143 in the domestic water well, 350-foot setback. The perspective here is that the 2,000-foot setback, COGCC setback, is going to take primacy. So in most cases, when a residential water well is associated with an actual residence, that 2,000-foot setback is going to take precedence, and we'll cover that well. The 350-foot setback that we've put in addition to that would be in the case of like, let's say a windmill or other type of operation that's primarily being used for agricultural purposes or livestock purposes. that's not associated specifically with a specific residence. It's far away out in an agricultural area or field. We wanted to have that there specifically for that that type of domestic well. And then finally, questions from Lynn Granger. We do have the new term, crude oil transfer line, and I think I'm going to ask Elizabeth Pranos. Elizabeth Pranos is our outside counsel, and she is available tonight, so I'm going to give her a second to get connected here, and then I'd like her to respond to that question on the definition of the crude oil transfer line and what questions we might have or lines we might have that would fall in that category here in Aurora. And then there was a statement that some of the regulations are on the pipelines are not regulated at the local level in other states and other places. And to that, I would just say we don't mind being first. We're happy to have regulations that are the best for Aurora. I believe that's what we have. And if that means we're first on something, then there we are. And now let me ask if Elizabeth, I know she's connected. Elizabeth, are you available? And could you answer the question from Ms. Granger about the crude oil transfer lines, our definition of that, and what applicability we might have there in the city of Aurora?
Yeah, sure thing, Jeffrey. So we took the definition of crude oil transfer line directly from the COGCC regulations. COGCC regulates crude oil transfer lines just as they regulate flow lines, including both on-location and off-location flow lines. And so the city's regulations apply co-equally to both types of crude oil transfer lines and flow lines that the COGCC regulates. I guess if there are concerns from API regarding the city's jurisdiction over crude oil transfer lines, I think it'd be helpful to hear further from API on that. I have yet to see any specific comments from API that raised concerns regarding local jurisdiction of crude oil transfer lines. So if there are concerns, I think it'd be helpful to understand what those are specifically.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That's the end of the my replies to the questions that were raised during the public hearing.
Jeffrey, Mike Hoffman, I might have misunderstood you on a response to a question about what I thought was the city of Boulder, and you said that Boulder is a city and a county. I don't believe it is. I think Broomfield is. There's only 2 city and counties in Colorado, Denver and Broomfield. Did I mishear you?
Yes, I may have confused that. Yeah, if I'm incorrect, then thank you for your correction.
Okay. Further questions or comments from council members?
Mayor.
Seeing that, I'm sorry. Councilmember Marcano.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank the public for all of the comments tonight and frankly, over the last several months as this has kind of worked through the process. It's been instrumental. I think you can see your fingerprints all over this ordinance.
Point of orders. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Councilmember Marcano.
Sure.
I think we're supposed to close the public hearing and then you would be able to make your, I'm sorry, but I.
Okay, well, let me, are there any further comments, and then we'll close the public hearing from council members? Seeing that the public hearing is now closed, motion?
No,
Mayor.
now Marcano can speak. Councilmember Marcano can now comment.
All right. Mayor.
Please proceed.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess where was I? Thank everyone who's reached in and helped kind of craft these comments over the last several months. And I want to give a big shout out to Jeffrey Moore for all your work on this. I know this is a monumental undertaking, and I really appreciate all the work and the diligence you put into this.
Further discussion?
Mayor?
Councilmember Johnson.
Yes, we have come a long way from when I first testified before council, before I was on council, to the operator agreements passed in 2019 and today. I think it's a really good example of taking the appropriate amount of time to do it right. Some of you may know this was going to be voted on last year. But we wanted to see what COGCC would come up with. have even more opportunities. I know Councilmember Marcano and I know Councilmember Coombs had another one. Many of us have had several town hall meetings on this. And of course, it's been to PED, the Oil and Gas Advisory Committee. So I just appreciate when we've brought up concerns of saying, you know what, the public's just not quite ready and we need to get there and we need to add this or we need to address that we accommodated that. And the end result is a pretty good, darn good product. Is it exactly 100%, matching my values? Maybe not. But when you hear different sides of having some issues, that says a lot too, but it's good policy. Jeffrey, I just have to say the technical expertise you have and you bring to the city just elevates this from saying, oh, we'll do whatever COGCC does when we need to just a really good, sound policy. So I really appreciate that work and us taking that extra time to address concerns. So thank you.
The question before us is the adoption of item number 12A. Motion.
Mayor, move to approve 12A.
Moved by Councilmember Gruber, seconded by
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Gruber, seconded by Councilmember Coombs to approve item number 12B. Further discussion.
Mayor, point of order.
Councilmember Marcano.
Just want to make sure it's 12A.
Oh, 12A. Stand corrected. Item number 12A. Question before us is the adoption of item number 12A. Further discussion. Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 12A?
Yes, item number 12A is ordinance 2021-15, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, creating Chapter 135 of the City Code pertaining to oil and gas and repealing certain sections of the Unified Development Ordinance. Councilmember Johnston.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins.
Yes, with a thank you to Mr. Moore.
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
The motion passes for item 12A.
Would the clerk now please read the title to item number 14A?
Item 14A is an introduction of ordinance 2021-19, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, amending section 2-851 of the City Code pertaining to the creation and composition of the Veterans Affairs Commission.
Staff presentation.
Yes, Mayor. This is Jamie LaDuke with Human Resources. This was at study session last week, and this is the Veterans Affairs Commission extending their membership to active duty members as well as Guard members and military reservists.
Motion.
Mayor, move to approve 14A.
Moved by Councilmember Gruber, seconded by?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Marcano to approve item number 14A. Discussion? Seeing none, the question before us is the adoption of item number 14A. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Coombs.
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins.
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz.
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber.
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson.
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Yes.
And Councilmember Johnston.
Yes.
The motion passes for item 14A.
Would the clerk now please read the title to item number 15A?
15A is finalizing of ordinance 2021-17, an ordinance of the City of Aurora, Colorado, appropriating sums of money in addition to those appropriated in ordinance numbers 2019-82, 2020-44, and 2020-68 for the 2020 fiscal year, and ordinance number 2020-53 for the 2021 fiscal year.
Quick briefing by staff.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Kirsten Claspel from the Budget Office. The spring supplemental impacts both the 2020 and the 2021 budget years. 2021 supplementals are activities that have already occurred. The most significant items are the CARES Act appropriation of $34 million in the Gifts and Grants Fund and water rights acquisitions of $30 million in the Water Fund. Most 2021 supplementals are technical and include several PCN movements and reorgs. In addition, a net 11 FTE are requested to be added to the budget, which includes 6 FTEs for the Youth Violence Prevention Program, funded by the new 1% marijuana sales tax rate. It also includes 2 FTEs in IT in the general fund, 1 FTE to address remote working needs, and the conversion of a contingent project coordinator to an FTE. And it also includes 4 Aurora water FTEs in the water fund, 1 water conservation specialist, 1 water resources specialist, and 2 treatment technicians.
Motion.
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
I believe actually Councilmember Coombs beat me to it. So.
Oh.
Councilmember Coombs.
Mayor, move to approve 15A.
Moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by Councilmember Marcano to approve item number 15A. Discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 15A?
Councilmember Gruber?
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo? Councilmember Gardner?
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen?
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz?
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano?
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins?
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs?
Yes.
The motion passes for item 15A.
Will clerk now please read the title to item number 15B?
Item 15B is finalizing of ordinance 2021-18, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aurora, Colorado, amending sections 2-765, 2-811, 2-812, and 2-815 of the City Code pertaining to changing the name of the Commission for Seniors to the Commission for Older Adults.
Brief staff presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm Brooke Bell, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. The Commission and staff request the city support the name change to expand awareness and understanding of aging among the decision makers, service providers, and the general public.
Motion.
Mayor.
Councilmember Coombs.
Move to approve 15B.
Moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by?
Second
by Councilmember McConnell to approve item number 15B. Discussion? Seeing none, would clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 15B?
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen?
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson?
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz?
Sorry, I thought I unmuted. Yes.
Councilmember Coombs?
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins?
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano?
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber?
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo?
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner?
Yes.
And Councilmember Johnston.
Yes.
The motion passes for item 15B.
Will clerk now please read the title to item number 18A?
Item 18A is reconsideration of resolution 2020-22, review of the powers granted to the city manager by resolution 2020-22.
Staff or city manager?
Don't need a presentation, do we?
Brief presentation.
Yes, Mayor. We've visited with the city attorney's office over the relaxation of a number of the public health orders and tri-county orders. I would ask that we go ahead and approve this one more time. Visited with Trevor Vaughn also about the enforcement efforts that we've made under the authority of this resolution. And so we'll visit and see if we feel that we need to extend it beyond this last, what could be the last time.
For motion?
Mayor.
Councilmember McConnell.
Move to approve 18A.
Been moved by Councilmember McConnell, seconded by?
Bergen.
seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen to approve item number 18A. Discussion? Seeing none, would clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 18A?
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Yes.
The motion passes for item 18A.
Would clerk now please read the title to item 19A?
Item 19A is consideration to appoint one member to the Homestake Steering Committee.
Motion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
move to appoint Sarah Young to the Homestake Steering Committee.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by Councilmember McConnell. Discussion? The clerk, please read the title. The clerk, please call the roll on the adoption of item number 18A.
Councilmember Berzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston.
Yes.
The motion passes to appoint Sarah Young to the Homestake Steering Committee.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 19B.
Item 19B is consideration to reappoint one member to the Election Commission.
Motion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
move to appoint Scott Irvin to the Election Commission.
Second?
So it moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen. Discussion? Would staff please call the roll on the adoption of item number 19B?
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano.
Yes.
The motion passes to appoint Scott Irvin to the Election Commission.
Clerk, now please read the title to item number 19C.
Item 19C is consideration to appoint one member to the Joint Water Authority.
Motion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
move to appoint Sarah Young to the Joint Water Authority.
Second? It's been moved by Councilmember Coombs, seconded by
Mayor Dave Gruber.
Councilmember Gruber. Discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of 19C?
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston.
Yes.
The motion passes to appoint Sarah Young to the Joint Water Authority.
Okay, now please read the title to item number 19D.
19D is consideration to reappoint one member and appoint two new members to the Veterans Affairs Commission.
Motion?
Mayor?
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Yes, move to appoint Nathan Graff, Michael Spetter, and then to reappoint Cynthia Francis.
Is there a second?
Mayor,
Councilmember Coombs.
second.
It's been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Bergen, seconded by Councilmember Coombs to approve item number 19D. Discussion. Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 19D?
Councilmember Gardner,
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston,
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber,
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen,
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson,
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz,
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs,
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo.
Yes.
The motion passes to appoint Cynthia Francis, to reappoint Cynthia Francis, appoint Michael Spatter and Nathaniel Graff to the Veterans Affairs Commission. Mayor Kaufman, I apologize. I did not read your name off for the roll call for these items. Would you like to approve the appointments of everything that has gone so far? So 19A.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Would the clerk now please read the title to item number 19E?
Item 19E is consideration to appoint one member and reappoint two members to the Metropolitan Wastewater Reclamation District Board.
Motion.
Mayor.
Councilmember Berzins.
Thank you. Move to appoint Greg Baker and reappoint Joanne Giddings and Nadine Caldwell to the Metropolitan Wastewater Reclamation District Board.
Is there a second?
Second, Gruber.
It's been moved by Councilmember Berzins, seconded by Councilmember Gruber to approve item number 19E. Discussion. Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of item number 19E?
Mayor Kaufman?
Yes.
Councilmember Johnston?
Yes.
Councilmember Coombs?
Yes.
Councilmember Hiltz?
Yes.
Councilmember Berzins?
Yes.
Councilmember Murillo?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen?
Yes.
Councilmember Gruber?
Yes.
Councilmember Lawson?
Yes.
Councilmember Gardner?
Yes.
Councilmember Marcano?
Yes.
The motion passes to reappoint Joanne Giddings, Nadine Caldwell, and to appoint Greg Baker to the Metropolitan Wastewater Reclamation District Board.
Very well. Report by the mayor. This is the last opportunity we have to talk to the public before Memorial Day, a day to honor the fallen. And I believe that the event at Fort Logan on Memorial Day is canceled, but however, there will be an event called Colorado Remembers at the Colorado Freedom Memorial that is located at 756 Telluride Street on Saturday. They will begin with a pancake breakfast at 8 o'clock, Saturday the 29th of May. The program itself will start at 10 o'clock and go to 11:30. It is an extraordinary memorial dedicated to all the fallen since the state of Colorado, well, since we became a state. And all the names are inscribed on glass panels. And I would strongly encourage everybody to go. There's seating for the Gold Star families and for the speakers, but for the attendees, I would strongly encourage you to bring lawn chairs or bring blankets for the event. And again, it's a great way to honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. Councilmember Lawson.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a report for CML or NLC, but for Pfizer, the federal update negotiations on the federal infrastructure package continue on Capitol Hill as Senate Republicans and the White House met last week. Following the meeting, President Biden released a $1.7 trillion counteroffer to the Republican plan, offering concessions on a number of areas. In the state update, Senate Bill 21260, which is the Comprehensive Transportation Funding Bill, passed the Senate Committee of the Whole last week and received its first hearing in the House today. And Governor Polis signed the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget into law. I have some things for RTD Reimagine. I will send out a more robust report because I have a lot more of a summary, but just to kind of give some highlights from the meeting on May 13th. RTG June bus service update, restoration of service. Route 169L, the Buckley Airport Boulevard, restore weekdays. It has been restored weekdays, Saturday and Sunday service schedules. Route 483, that's along Parker Road, restore weekday services. The Route 15, the Colfax corridor, they're increasing service frequency from 15 to every 10 minutes. The next steps for Reimagine RTD initiative, the schedule will extend through March 31st, 2022. The discussions will be on the future transit service scenarios and preliminary evaluation strategies, zero emission vehicle update, fiscal and financial updates. They're actually also rebuilding a service subgroup starting in June. To provide input to RTD on performance measures, metrics, indicators, and milestones to inform rebuilding the service. The group will include representatives from the technical working group and advisory committee. Our next meeting for the technical working group is on July 14th, and for the advisory, it's July 15th. There is a new RTD announcement. The RTD system-wide fare study and equity analysis will begin in the summer of 2021. The duration of the study will be approximately 18 months. The purpose is to look at the comprehensive look at fares and the past programs, currently high by comparison to other systems, evaluate the fare affordability and structure, and increase access to service. So, Mayor, that's just a briefing. I will send my more formal update to the council this week. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Lawson. Councilmember Gruber.
Mayor, you stole some of my thunder talking about the event at Colorado Freedom Memorial. For those that haven't been there, I really recommend you take the opportunity. Not only is it an outstanding monument to all of the people in Colorado who've died in war, they also brought in dirt from the various cemeteries across the world where people in Colorado are interned, the national cemeteries that have been set up in those countries. So it's a very moving event, and we're fortunate to have Rick Crandall, the person who put this all together for us. Again, Memorial Day is this weekend. Please fly your flags. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hiltz.
No report. Thank you.
Councilmember Gardner.
No report.
Councilmember Murillo.
Thank you, Mayor. I have my monthly town hall this Thursday, the 27th at 6 p.m. It'll be via WebEx. We're going to have a budget presentation in light of our oil and gas presentation today. I'm hoping I can squeeze in a presentation there. If not, we'll be scheduling an update at a future town hall just to for folks to be updated. I know that the area physically doesn't include Ward 1, but when it comes to intersectionality and air quality issues, those are things that don't observe physical boundaries. So I think it's really important for Ward 1 constituents to be updated and aware, even if it's not a physical site near them in the district. We are neighbors to Ward 2, so just being informed is really important. An update from the RTD Accountability Committee. We are almost at the end of over a year-long process to really evaluate and investigate what accountability looks like for RTD. And it's been a interesting time really just exploring all of the different facets around operations, governance, and finances related to RTD. We will be having a public hearing on the most final draft of recommendations on Monday, June 14th. And that's from 8:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. And I would love to have your guys' feedback in those conversations. Councilmember Lawson mentioned the equity study that's going to be performed. That is an outcome of the work that we've done through the RTD Accountability Committee. So we're going to tag team Reimagine RTD as they're kind of the ongoing working technical group to help us implement some of these ideas that we were able to create in this time. So I'm excited that that's a foundational piece that we need to accomplish before any changes to the fairs and passes can actually legally be moved forward. It's a requirement through the FTA, which is the a federal authority over public transit. So that is my update. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnston.
Thank you, Mayor. And I also want to echo, I will be at the Colorado Freedom Memorial this weekend as well. And it is just, even if you're out of town maybe on Saturday, go anytime. You can go. My kids and I go there regularly and just walk around and remember the sacrifices that people made. So definitely encourage that. And as Councilmember Gruber said, the work that Rick Crandall and Diane Crandall have done is just priceless. And we appreciate all of that. And thank you for the city to help coordinate that event as well. And then I just want to give a shout out to Restoration Christian Fellowship and the city of Aurora for the amazing event. I was so proud of the church, the legacy of Pastor Felix, and our staff for putting together these options for alternate sheltering options. It's still up until May 27th. You can go. It's kind of 6th and Chambers area, Restoration Christian Fellowship, and you can go and walk in a tiny home, look at different pallet homes, the portable showers, safe parking. Restoration Christian Fellowship does want to look at safe parking for folks, and then also look if there's any people who want to donate meals, so people have that to look forward to. But staff, you did an amazing job. And I just also, obviously the city of Aurora has been in the news a lot with the mayor proposing the camping ban, but I just want to remind everyone at home, the council is the one who votes on these policies. We have a city manager form of government. They're looking at best practices, our staff, and we'll be presenting those different options, bringing us that community feedback, and then the council determining those next steps. So thank you for everyone who is coordinating that. And my next town hall is a week from Thursday. We'll be hearing library and cultural services at 6:30 p.m. Thanks.
Councilmember McConnell.
Mayor, did you skip Councilmember Berzins?
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Berzins.
Thank you. I never know in what order we're going, so it's okay. I just want to remind people, Ward 1 also is a neighbor of Ward 3. We butt up next to each other, and then 2's off to the side, so we're all neighbors here, 1, 2, and 3. On June the 9th, we will have the Ward 3 virtual meeting. It'll be our Ward 3 virtual meeting, June the 9th. And then on July 24th, we're going to come together and have our 10th annual picnic at Bicentennial Park from 11 to 2, Ward 3 members only. So I'm looking forward to seeing everybody back in person. So I'll see you in June and July. Thank you.
Councilmember McConnell.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I just want to add and echo the comments of several of my colleagues. Definitely check out the Freedom Memorial event this weekend. You will not regret it. It is a lovely event, and the work that goes on out there is, as Councilmember Johnston said, priceless. I wanted to give an update on Aurora Sister Cities. We actually have the Global Youth Leaders Summer Program that is actually still happening this year. And we're currently open for registration for students aged 13 to 15. So this is a unique summer program that is designed to build global competencies in youth to better prepare them for a future in the global marketplace. So you can sign up by heading over to aurorasistercities.org, by calling 303-739-7120, or by emailing Carlin Shorb at kshorb, S-H-O-R-B, at auroragov.org. And that's going to be happening in the summer from June 14th through 18th, and then another session from July 26th through the 30th. Also want to let folks know that we're going to, the City of Aurora is hosting a drive-through resource event for families beginning at 10 a.m. on Saturday, June 5th. at Overland High School. The supplies are going to be distributed on a first come, first serve basis until they run out. This will be very similar to a lot of the aid events that we had during the peak of COVID last year. And then as a reminder, we will not be having a Ward 4 meeting in June, but we will be meeting again on Wednesday, July 14th at 6:30 p.m. to recap the International Making Cities Livable Conference. And have a great rest of your week.
Councilmember Combs.
Thank you, Mayor. I definitely want to also encourage folks to go to the Colorado Freedom Memorial Colorado Remembers event and thank Rick and Diane Crandall for all of their great work. I'd also like to echo Councilmember Johnston's concerns regarding the open house at Restoration Christian Fellowship. I think people were really encouraged to see the different options that we're presenting, and I've had some good conversations with constituents about the possibilities of what we can do. I want to also thank former council member Debbie Hunter-Holen for organizing a walk along the Highline Canal today with Chief Wilson and partners from the Highline Canal Conservancy, Arapahoe County Open Space Board, and the organization Walk to Connect. The intent of the event was to encourage community connection, as well as promote a sense of community safety and acknowledge the different violent crime incidents that have occurred in our city and also on the Highline Canal. So thank you to everyone who attended. I was also able to go, and it was a good opportunity to discuss various issues and ideas about how we can be more connected as a community to keep safer in the city. I will also, on the topic of safety, be working with PAR officers and community members to host an active shooter and community safety webinar on June 23rd at 6:30 p.m. And I'll get the links and further information about that out in the coming weeks. Our next ward meeting is June 2nd, so that's next Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. And we'll be talking about economic development, including workforce development with folks from Community College of Aurora and retail from Town Center at Aurora. Updates on DRCOG, we discussed the budget, which we'll approve at the next meeting. We took a position of support on SB 260, which I did vote in support based on the FSIR support position that was taken. We also received a briefing on the status of fast tracks projects from RTD, and then a number of the items that Councilmember Lawson and Councilmember Murillo brought up from their committees were also discussed at that meeting. And Executive Director Doug Rex reminded everyone that there are affordable housing webinars available, as well as technical advisory panels from the Urban Land Institute. For the Cherry Creek Basin Water Quality Authority, we will be convening a committee of elected officials to discuss potential funding sources and funding priorities for future improvements. And we received updates about some areas in need of potential improvements within the basin. And then for Visit Aurora, they will be conducting a community survey, which will involve first a round of stakeholders and businesses, and then second a round of residents. And the questions will be tailored to each group. Those will be sent out in the coming weeks around the same time as the 2021 Aurora Visitors Guide. And then finally at the Aurora Pride board meeting, we did discuss the presence of police at Pride in Aurora Pride this year. Last week, we took a position to welcome police at Pride and have a conversation about how that presence can be one that will be safe for other members of the community who might otherwise feel uncomfortable or fearful attending an event with a large police presence. And then we'll be meeting again this week to further discuss. So that's all.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergen.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to say happy Memorial Day, and I will be attending also the Colorado Freedom Memorial on Saturday. I have a town hall this Wednesday from 6 to 8. It is the last virtual meeting, and we will have presentations on the budget, the trail system, and then also a beautification grant process and my updates. E470, we had our meeting and basically had, most of it was about our audit report from KPMG and those results, and then just some updates on the tolling roadway. And then Mile High Flood District, we had a presentation from Timbers Creek on channel restoration. And then we also had our financial updates as well. I think that's it. I also wanted to say that I'm on the Pride board, and that we did make that decision to allow our officers to attend the Pride event that will be in August. So I think that's it for me. Have a good evening.
Public invited to be heard.
Mayor, we do have one individual in the queue for public invited to be heard.
All right, David Hagan, you have 3 minutes. Go right ahead.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to speak in opposition of the proposed camping ban that the mayor proposed. It's pretty ignorant based on the facts that are coming around from around the world, around the country, about housing first. It just doesn't make sense that we would try to go down the same road as that Denver is going down right now, which they're in lawsuits. It's going to cost the city even more money once people start suing. It just doesn't make any sense as to why we would ever go down that road in Aurora. Let's see. And then here's this. There was a study done in Canada about they gave 7,500 Canadian dollars to homeless people. Here's what they spent it on. What the study found out was that everybody that was provided with the money either stopped using drugs, used less drugs, or had no effect on their drug use. But every single person was able to start planning for the future, and they started moving to housing. They started to be able to get jobs. And this is not everybody. This is just a representative of the drug use, because since the mayor continues to talk about drug use, I figured I'd focus on drug use. When the majority of the people that are unhoused aren't using drugs, the majority of the people that are unhoused, we don't actually see because they still have jobs. They just can't afford their apartments or their houses anymore. They got pushed out of them. So when we're out there looking, with the people that don't have walls, you see the ones that are doing drugs because they're the only ones there. You don't see the ones that are off at work. So I focused on that. So it didn't affect it did not, at worst, it didn't change their usage, but at best, they completely stopped. But all of them were able to move into housing. So housing first is the only option. Anything less than that is not going to do anything. It's going to criminalize inaction by people. And then my last thing I wanted to say is if the mayor felt as stupid as he looked on CBS Sunday morning after all the other people there spoke, because he made that city look terrible. Thank you.
Any further public invited to be heard?
That was the final person.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.